Hi, it's Mary Jane here from Home for the Harvest, and today I am potting up some houseplants that have been propagated in water. So it's kind of a fun way to propagate houseplants. It doesn't take up too much room. You can just have a little shelf with a bunch of little plants, and they root kind of slowly, so don't be too bothered if it feels like they're taking forever. But as long as you're changing out the water and that they have enough light, but eventually they're going to start to get roots. And then what do you do with them? So you pot them up. I'm going to pot up, I've got 3 little spider babies here. These are from my friend Rachel. 3 spider babies, 1 pothos, and 1 monstera. So my cousin's girlfriend is just getting into plants. So I'm going to bring her a baby monstera and maybe a spider plant. So all I do is I've got all these little terracotta pots, and then they've got a little bit of potting mix in them. I try to fill it actually most of the way, just because the roots are still quite tiny on these. So what I'm going to do is pick up the plant. I already trimmed off any of the roots that were kind of looking a little bit like soft and brown, and I just pulled off a leaf that was quite close to the bottom. You don't have to take off the bottom leaves. I just don't love burying foliage that I feel like should be above the water. I'm sure I like to have all the roots below the soil and all the leaves above the soil. It's not exactly rocket appliances here. So I'm just going to hold it in the center of the pot. So I hold the little spider baby where I want it to be, and then I backfill with the other hand with potting mix. Holding this spider baby. I can see one of the roots poked up over the soil, and that's totally fine. Many houseplants have aerial roots. I like how that's sitting. Then I'm just going to take a little bit of water and help settle the soil. I do, like when I put the potting soil in here in the first place, it is a little bit wet. Like it's not muddy, but it's a little bit wet, and that just helps when you actually do water after planting. The water doesn't just run off the sides and totally skip the inside of the potting mix, which is a thing that happens. So if you have completely dry potting mix, I would mix it up in a bigger pot like this before with some water and just let it sit. It's just easier to work with. All right, I'm going to do these other 2 spider babies now. Maybe a touch more. If you don't put in quite enough potting mix, then the plant starts to fall over. That's not good, but you also want to leave enough room, like ½ an inch in a small pot like this for the water. Because if you fill the pot all the way up to the top with potting mix, it's kind of difficult to water. The water runs off the side, and that's kind of a mess inside if you're growing indoor plants. So I like not to do that if I can help it. I'm going to put all these on little dishes because there is drainage holes in the bottom of all these terracotta pots, which is good for plants, but not so great for countertops. So yeah, I do buy the little dishes that go under these too, which are sometimes more expensive than the pots. I don't know about that. Okay, this guy has got a lot going on. So I'm going to pull off these leaves that are at the bottom of the roots. And maybe this one. Okay, so now one more. Okay, so now it's mostly roots at the bottom and leaves at the top, which is what we want. So I probably pulled off half the leaves off of this little guy, but it's got a ton of roots. I think it's going to be completely fine. I'm not too worried about that. It feels scary to pull off the leaves, but there's a few leaves that are going to get buried by the soil anyway. They're not going to be happy under there. May as well just get rid of that foliage, like above ground foliage tissue, and leave room for more roots to grow. And grow they will with a spider plant. So you don't have to be particularly careful with these plants. I mean, be gentle with your fingertips, but like if you're pulling off the odd root, they're probably going to be okay. These aren't the most precious plants to repot. All right, that's the spider plants. Let's do the pothos now. The pothos, I may as well put it in a little pot too. They don't need a ton of space. I don't quite know where this one is going. Maybe the plant sale. Our garden club has a plant sale every spring on the Mother's Day long weekend, so I might take this there. I'm not sure. It would be nice to have a couple houseplants. The houseplants always go well, but I've got to label them. I got to remember to label them this year, which ones are safe for which pets and which ones are toxic to which pets, because those are always the most common questions that I get. This one has a ton of roots. I am going to put it in this little pot because I need those bigger pots for another project. I think it's going to be okay. Just got to hold it nicely. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to take to the plant sale this year. I haven't started any seeds yet, other than the winter sowing, but I haven't started any indoor seeds yet. Maybe I'll start some. I think we took a lot of cilantro plants and little basil plants last year, and those went well. So maybe I'll start some more little herb plants. I always end up bringing tomatoes because I always start too many tomatoes. I'm pretty sure that that's a common issue with veggie gardeners, but I'd like to bring more houseplants this year. I do not know what kind of pothos this is, just a nice plain kind of bright green leaf cultivar. Right, that looks good. I'll wash all these pots off afterwards. A little bit scuzzy. All right, let's do the monstera now. This guy. Let's see what's going on with the roots first. So the roots are pretty long. I might trim, oh, that one looks a bit soft. Might trim a couple of them just to make sure that I'm only planting the healthiest parts. That all looks okay, actually. I usually do my houseplant repotting and uppotting in the springtime, and it's still kind of late winter here. It's not really spring, so I'm probably a bit early, but I got other stuff to do, so I got to get this done. So sometimes things cannot be at the perfect time, and that is just life. I'm not exactly running like a plant nursery here, so I just do what I can when I can, and some stuff never gets done. This pot is big enough that I'm going to water it halfway through, just to settle the soil a little bit. So you can see the roots are still sticking way up. I mean, monstera has a ton of aerial roots anyway, but even the roots, I want to bury most of these roots, but I'm just watered it halfway through to make sure that it's sitting where I want in the pot. It's a lot easier to position the plant in the middle of the pot when you're repotting it instead of when you don't have it all bare, when you've got it in this big mass of potting soil and you're trying to kind of massage it around. It's not so great. I'm getting better at estimating how much potting soil I'm going to need, but it's still kind of hit or miss. I have 2 big bags out on the deck, but it's totally freezing here right now. So I have to take, whenever it goes above freezing, I'll go out there and I'll dig a bunch out and put it in like a big planter pot that I can take inside and then keep thawed so it's not getting all gross and frozen together in a giant dirt ice cube. 'Cause that's not helpful. Okay, this one looks nice in the middle. I'm not gonna put a pole in this one yet. I do like to put like a moss pole with my monsteras. When they're little like this, I just pop like a skewer or a chopstick in. But this one is just so tiny and cute. I think it will be fine just like that. All right, so that is how I pot up my houseplants that have been propagated in water. So yeah, this one had 3 spider plants in here, 1 pothos and 1 monstera. They're in there for months and they're happy as long as you're changing the water. I have them right in the windowsill so they are getting some light, but they weren't under the plant light or anything like that. And yeah, they're happy and I will be hopefully delivering them to new owners soon.